Today I'm going to be showing you how to make my favorite protein cookies. These are kind of a copycat version of a combination between the Quest protein cookies and the Lenny and Larry's protein cookies. The Quest I find a little too chewy and tastes too much like protein, and Lenny and Larry's tend to be a little bit on the dry side. So I tried to combine the best of both and create a cookie that has a really high protein content for a cookie and is also gluten-free. So I'm going to demonstrate this today. We'll talk about the different protein powders and all the other ingredients that go into it. It's very simple. We're going to use a stand mixer, but you can also do this by hand. They're cookies, so it's easy, and there's not a lot of actually really hard mixing going into this. So to start off, one of the things I want to point out is that I have all my ingredients pre-weighed, pre-measured here. I do everything by weight. You'll notice in all of my recipes. This is not to make your life more difficult. This is because, especially with gluten-free baking, but really with all baking, that's the #1 thing you can do to improve your baking results. All professional pastry chefs do it. And the reason is that your results are going to be much more consistent, especially when we're dealing with gluten-free flours. It is an absolute game changer. Scales are inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon. I'll list some links below to my Amazon list where I have the scale that I use, the scales that I like. It's faster once you learn how to do it, and you have far less mistakes and much better results. So I'm going to start off by taking my butter, all of my wet ingredients, my butter, my peanut butter. So for my peanut butter today, you can use any nut butter you want in this recipe. I like to use a protein added peanut butter. So my favorite is PB Fit, not the powder, but they actually have a spread. No, I'm not sponsored. This just happens to be my favorite peanut butter. Skippy also makes a protein added, and a few other brands depending on where you live. If you can't get a protein added, use a regular peanut butter. But I really like the texture and the taste of this one, and it's got a little extra protein there. So we're going to put all that into the mixer and add to it our sweetener, which can be any granulated sweetener that you like. Today I'm using maple sugar. I usually use maple sugar or coconut sugar. They are more natural than granulated sugar, less refined, and they have a lower glycemic index. You could also use a granulated allulose. It will change your cookie texture just slightly. They'll be a little bit crunchier and a little harder, not quite as chewy. And that's just due to the fact that sugar holds on to moisture, so it's going to change your dough a tiny bit. So once we have all that in here, it's simple. We're just going to do basic creaming like you would with any cookie, and we're just creaming this to mix it together. You don't need to worry about getting it all kinds of crazy fluffy or anything. Just get everything mixed, and then we're going to add our egg right in. Okay, so you can see here that everything is mixed together well. No clumps of butter or peanut butter or sugar or anything. I'm just going to give it a little scrape down. Every time I stop the mixer, I always scrape it down just to keep everything well distributed. And I'm going to add in my egg, and we're just going to mix that until all of that comes together. While that's mixing, I'm going to combine all of my dry ingredients together so that they're ready to add in. As you can see, all of our butters, sugar, sweetener is all mixed together in the bowl. And now I'm ready to add the dry ingredients. So for my dry ingredients, here I have gluten-free flour, protein powder. Today I'm using vanilla whey protein powder, and I'm using my favorite. Of course, it's my favorite. It's my protein powder, which I created with my friend who's a doctor. This is Doctor and the Chef. It's a grass-fed vanilla whey protein powder. I will put a link for that below as well. It's grass-fed from New England farms, super, super high quality, no added sugars. And it's delicious and really great for cooking and baking as well as making shakes. So I'm going to add that in with my gluten-free flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. And we're just going to add all of that right into the mixer. And then start it on slow so it doesn't go everywhere. And we're just going to mix it till it's combined. So now that we have all the dry in, everything's mixed together, time to add the chocolate chips. Today I'm using Lily's chocolate chips. Again, not an ad, not sponsored. I just happen to like Lily's. Again, they are no added sugar. You can use any chocolate chips you like, or you could use another mix-in. If you don't want to use chocolate chips, you could use dried fruit or nuts or something else. I'm going to put about half of my chocolate chips in, and I'm going to save the rest to put on top of the cookies before we bake them. Just give that a quick mix, and that's it. Now it's time to put them on the pan and bake them. So you can see how our dough is all mixed with the chips evenly dispersed throughout it. And when I scoop, I try to kind of keep them as even as I can, some chips in every cookie. And with these cookies, just like you can change up which peanut butter you're using, if you are need this to be dairy free, you can use a vegan plant-based protein powder. I also have, Dr. and the Chef, we have a really great vanilla protein powder that is plant-based. You can use any plant-based protein powder that you love, that you keep in the house. And if you need to be egg-free, you can substitute the egg in this recipe with aquafaba or any liquid egg replacer. For my cookie scoop here, I'm using about 1.5 ounces to a 2 ounce scoop. And at that size, I'm gonna get 12 cookies. I usually space them pretty far apart, and especially the first time you make them, if you're not sure how much they're gonna spread, because that depends a little bit on which nut butter you're using. Just flatten them out a little bit, and I usually do 6 to a tray. So once you have them flattened, then you're gonna go back and take some of those leftover chips. This is how we get that nice bakery looking perfect chips on top cookies, and you're just going to add a few chips to the top of each cookie, and then we're going to pop these right into the oven and bake them at 350. They take 9 to 10 minutes, depends on your oven. So I usually put them in for 5 minutes, and then we're going to check them and put them in for another 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so our cookies just came out of the oven. You can see they are a light golden brown, and when I push on them, they still feel a little soft in the center, and you want that because you want them to be overly dry. And you can play around with that depending on how you like your cookies, if you like them a little chewier or a little bit crispier. And that is it. That's all it takes to make these cookies. Super simple, they're really delicious and have great macros for a cookie. Just a few things to keep in mind. If you are making them with the vegan protein powder, they come out a little bit thicker, or you can add a little extra butter or some sort of fat if you want them to spread a little bit thinner, but the vegan protein powders do tend to bind up a little bit thicker. So let's just break into one and see what it looks like. These are still really, really warm, but super delicious. As with all of my recipes, this full recipe for these cookies can be found on my website, chefalina.com, under the recipes section, where you'll find lots of gluten-free recipes. And you will also find on my website full-length, in-depth classes for all sorts of things, from bread to croissants. And those are all on my shop page along with my ebook. I hope you enjoyed this cookie recipe and you have lots of fun playing around and making your own variations.